And we're back at the LVMH Gallery with some living legends. And to tell those stories, I have the great pleasure to be joined by Julien Tornard. Julien, it's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Marjorie. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
You're actually the CEO of Zenith, creator of luxury watches since 1865, and you've taken an unusual initiative, restoring exceptional vintage watches. I think you've actually made it here with one of those iconic watches. We're going to take a look at it right away because, I mean, I'm sure this tantalizing glimpse will make our audience want to find out more, what model it is, what makes this vintage watch so rare. You'll definitely tell us about it in a minute, but first, where the idea of restoring previously worn watches to give them a new lease of life came from.
Yes, it actually came to my mind in 2019. During this year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the famous movement El Primero. And we have created some revivals, some re-editions of these iconic watches. And we saw, first of all, a huge demand for such watches, as well as in parallel, the prices at auction going up and up and up. And I realized how much demand there is for these iconic watches. So we say, okay, we've made watches since 1865. How can we make sure these watches are living forever and will be here for eternity? And that's how we started to basically restore and bring back to life these amazing watches.
Sounds to me like a treasure hunt, isn't it?
It is, clearly, because those watches were made in very limited editions. It's very difficult to find them. So it is a treasure hunt. When we put our hand on some of these, it's very difficult. Since we are in Le Locle since day one, we are the only basically entity able to have the components, the spare parts and everything to restore these watches.
So what makes those watches so alluring? How could you describe the fervor around it?
There are a couple of things, I would say. First of all, there is the legend of the El Primero, which people know a lot. It was the very first automatic chronograph created in the watch industry. And of course, restoring those watches, bring them back to life, as I said. So we basically show that these watches have been made years ago, but they're still here, and they have multiple lives. So it has also some emotional dimension, some magic around them.
And what is just so amazing is the fact that the mechanical system of the watch disappeared in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, actually, there was quite of a crazy story. In the early 70s, few years after the El Primero was created, there was what we call the quartz revolution, and the company got acquired by an American company. And when these American managers came to Switzerland, they decided that mechanical watch was done. So they basically said, quartz is the future, let's stop mechanical watches. Our watchmakers literally fell off their chairs, fell off their workshops, and it was crazy for them. And one of them, called Charles Vermeau, that we consider as a hero today, decided to hide every single component, tool, plan, start of watches, components of watches in the attic of the company, and he built a brick wall. He did that over 6 months at night during the weekends, and he preserved this treasure. Nobody knew about it for years, but he is really a hero for us.
It sounds like an Hollywood story to me. I mean, it's just incredible, actually. But to my mind, there's still one question out there. First, it's even with this quartz revolution, how did you keep the idea on making mechanical watches? I mean, you definitely rose like a phoenix.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Years ago, the company was acquired by another owners who knew about the legendary aspect of the El Primero and asked his employees, how can we bring this movement back to life? And one of them contacted Charles Vermeau, took him out of his retirement. He literally came to the manufacture and broke the brick wall and showed what we now call the hidden treasure. And it's an amazing story. It's true. For visitors coming to our manufacturer, they can literally see the attic and the broken wall.
Well, again, fantastic story out there. But there's another story which needs to be told. It's the story of those iconic watches themselves. For those who would like to join the initiative and be one of the acquired of the iconic collection again, where can they find them?
So they can find them in our boutique, in our internal boutique network, a few of them. And starting June 21st, we are going to present and offer to our clients the very first iconic watch, an incredible watch called the G381, which was created in 1971. And that piece will be available online for the first time.
So it's, you know, reminds me of the fact that, of course, here at VivaTech, we're talking about reconnection. And Julien, to my mind, you're definitely reconnected with the transmission and, you know, the heritage of what Zenith watches was all about at its creation and nowadays. How could you actually sum it up?
You know, Zenith has always been at the top of innovation. From day one, our founder was the very first person to put all the craftsmen under the same roof. And when the El Primero was made in the 60s, again, the innovative spirit was incredible. It was one of the biggest innovations in the watch industry. So today, we continue to capitalize on that. We continue to link the heritage with the future, you know, the tradition with the innovation. And bringing those vintage watches back to life is actually a great way to talk about sustainability, circular economy, because you don't have so many objects around you that can still be here in hundreds of years. If you have a watchmaker able to regulate the watch, put some oil, our watches will actually work and function forever.
So actually bridging the gap between the past and, again, the future, which is basically now, is definitely getting back to the watch we just teased at the very beginning of this interview. What is it?
It's an incredible watch. Again, the reference is a G381, very rare, made in a very few pieces, in gold. It was one of the first watch in gold that had this famous El Primero movement. It came out of our manufacture in 1971 and was sold to our retailer in Salerno, south of Italy. And almost 50 years later, we found the piece again. We nicknamed it the Untouched because it still have this filter of protection on the back of the case. It even had the sticker with the price in Italian lira. So it hadn't been touched. It probably stayed in safes or I don't know, but it's been in such amazing condition, pristine condition, that our watchmakers barely had to touch it.
My gosh.
Very unique, very unique.
Back to the future with you and Zenith. Julien, thank you so much for telling us those stories.
Thank you, Marjorie, for this nice moment together.
Stay with us. More innovative stories to come in the gallery.